Strange Brew Podcast, Season 1, Episode 371. Kind of a tough weekend for the Brewers. Saturday, Sunday, didn't look great against the Dodgers. Amazing how quickly in baseball things can turn on you. You win on Friday, you jump out to a 3-0 lead on Saturday. Vibes are good. Tarps are off. We're going to talk about the Tarps Off movement hitting American Family Field and the official statement the Brewers had to release on Tarps Off and maybe blocking fans from getting into those upper tank sections in left field to take their shirts off and twirl them around. But the vibes could not have been better after the win on Friday. You sweep the Cubs, day off Thursday, beat the Dodgers on Friday, season best 12 games over 500. You jump out to a 3-0 lead on Saturday, and then it just all went away after the second or third inning on Saturday, and you lose both Saturday and Sunday. But a bounce back on Memorial Day Monday, Dollar Hot Dog Day at AmFam Field. We'll talk about the dollar dog tally as well. My God, so many tens of thousands of hot dogs consumed at AmFam yesterday. But the Miz just kept on mizzing. He's the Miz and nobody beats him. He gives up a run, which is the first run he gave up in the month of May, tied a career high with 12 strikeouts. The velocity was off the charts, even by his standards yesterday. We're going to break all of that down, and I know we've got a long way to go, and hopefully a long way to go in Miz's career, but the way that he is trending right now, he is appointment viewing. He is CC Sabathia 2008. You don't want to miss a pitch when this guy is on the mound. So a big win for the Brewers over the Cardinals. Cardinals, by the way, in second place as the Cubs continue to free fall, which you hate to see. You absolutely hate to see it happen. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. We will go over some NBA stuff as we are one half of the way home to the NBA Finals matchup. That Spurs-Thunder series looks like it's probably going to go at least 6, maybe 7, but the Knicks are in the finals. For the first time since 1999, they sweep away the Cavaliers. There was a big Taylor Swift-Travis Kelce sighting. I didn't know that Kelce was from the Cleveland area, but Taylor Swift, we just have to touch on a little bit. Taylor Swift, front row at a Cleveland Cavaliers NBA game. That just shows if she's really a ride or die. Like, that's a real relationship. There's nothing fabricated about that. She sat through that most of the game, 85% of the game, and looked bored out of her mind, but she sat through it. So we'll talk a little bit about the NBA as Giannis is still a buck, where there are trade rumors running wild every single day now, and it kind of feels like Miami or Boston now feels like they're sort of in the equation. So we will discuss that a little bit. Packer OTAs get underway today, and we're going to recap a bit of the Indy 500. I was on the edge of my seat on Sunday. I'm not a racing guy, but I might be starting to become a racing guy. Let's go.
On the ground, a chance here. Durham to Hardy to first. Hit time! Yes! The Brewers win! Yes!
Here comes Melvin to the 25, to the 20, Gordon 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Wisconsin! Record-breaking run!
Morgan, a smash up the middle, base hit to center. Here comes Gomez, around third, a throw, and the Brewers win!
Here's the snap. He looks, he throws, it's complete interception. And there is your Super Bowl dagger.
Booker the drive, gets inside, leans in, knocked away and stolen by Holiday. Phoenix has to foul on a pinnacle ball, throws it down.
Swinging fly ball in the right center. Broxton is there, and they're the champions. They have done it.
It's been a 50-year journey. Wisconsin, we've got a room at the top of the world tonight. The Milwaukee Bucks are NBA champions.
All right, welcome in Tuesday morning after a long weekend, hopefully for everybody out there. Memorial Day weekend. Remember the reason for Memorial Day, but what a beaut we had. We finally had a nice warm day on Monday. We didn't even know what to do with ourselves. We just sat outside. We didn't even move. Just sat out enjoying some of the sunshine and the warm weather. We haven't had any of that really in our area in southeastern Wisconsin for a lot of this April and May. We had the heat still click on Saturday morning. That's got to be one of the latest parts of the year we've had the heat click on in the house. And we have our heat set low. It is interesting. We talked on the morning show on, I think it was last week or the week prior, when we were still waking up, when we were talking first break of the morning show at 6:05, talking about wind chills, talking about 26-degree wind chills in the middle of May. And I did pose the question, there are a lot of people, and I've softened on this stance, but there are a lot of people in our area of the country that have to use a lot of heat during the winter, the fall and winter and the spring, that try to avoid turning the heat on until the last possible day. Like, for whatever reason, November 1st is a day. And we talk about this often on the B93 Morning Show. That it always feels like that's the day people wait to. I'm not turning the heat on until November 1st. It's 52 degrees in the house. The kids are freezing. The dog is shivering. Shut up. Everybody shut. Nobody touch the thermostat. Nobody is touching the thermostat until November 1st. And then once November 1st hits, then we feel like we can turn the heat on. Why we chose that date, why we choose to be uncomfortable when we could afford to turn the heat on, why we do that as a culture, I don't know. But it is something I did for a lot of the early part of my adult life. Like I said, now in the last 3 or 4 years, if it's sub 30, if it's getting to be 60, 61 in the house in October, in September, I don't care. Turn the heat on. Life's too short. I'm just going to sit here and be uncomfortable for what? But I did pose the question, does that then extend to May? Like if you are going to be ardently, I'm not turning the heat on until November 1st, is there a shutoff date then? Or do you just keep the heat on until we get to a point where it actually gets warm outside? Or is there some kind of like May 1st or April? Is it tax day? April 15th, April 1st? Is there a shutoff day or do you just keep going then? Is there no back end date to that? Because we did have the heat click on for a little bit on Saturday morning and we've got it set at like 62 at this point or 63. It had been really cold the first couple of weeks. But then we finally on Monday got a day where we were starting in the 60s and it got to be about 80 outside of our house. I got up on Monday morning. I'm at a point now where I just can't. I've been doing the morning show for so many years. I wake up pretty much at 4:30 or 4 o'clock every day, no matter what. But on the weekends, I've been pretty good. If I can just stick to it, if I can just stay in bed for like 10 minutes after I wake up like I'm supposed to normally do on a Monday through Friday, if I can just gut out that 10 minutes, then I can fall back asleep for an hour or two, and I typically get up around 7 or 8 o'clock on weekends. So I got up at 7:30 yesterday morning, Monday morning, which is obviously, I was a sharp wake up at 4 o'clock on Monday, because it's Monday. But I went downstairs, and my wife typically gets up earlier than I do on the weekend. I didn't see her in the living room, and then I didn't see her in the tri-level, and then I thought, or the base level of the tri-level, which is kind of where we hang out. There's 2 living rooms in a tri-level. The first living room that you walk into when you first come in from the garage, that's kind of like the basement of a tri-level. But that's where we spend most of our time, that level. But there's also the formal living room that she'll sit in sometimes, too, that we almost never have people sitting in. Spend $10,000 on furniture for that room. Nobody ever sits in it. But I didn't see her there. I didn't see her on the couch downstairs. And I thought, well, it finally happened. She said after 20 years, she said 19 years, she said, enough's enough. I don't know how much longer I can do this. A podcaster? Come on, get a real job. But then I looked outside, just sitting in the sun, just getting a little bit of sun and warm weather. Patio door was open. We haven't had that yet this year. I am to a point, I love to grill on Fridays in the summer. We grill more than once a week, but Friday's my day. Like, we get a bunch of meat, bunch of brats, bunch of burgers, bunch of chicken, grill it out for like the whole week. And I love that. When it's warm out Friday, she gets done with work a little earlier, get the patio door open, get the music going on the patio, have an ice-cold beer and grill some burgers and brats. I've been out there on Fridays, but it's been cold. It's been like hoodie sweatpants season out there. It's not as enjoyable as it normally is, but that was the first day we really had that. And the whole neighborhood, pool parties, grilling out, people getting yard work done, planting gardens, the whole deal. Yelling at their dogs, yelling at their kids outside. Drop it, drop it. There was a lot of that kind of stuff going on in the neighborhood on Monday. So hope you enjoyed the long weekend. Nice warm day today, too. We're going to be in the mid-80s and sun today. Before we hop into the Brewers, and we'll do a quick recap of the Dodgers on Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then we'll talk more extensively about Miz and the win yesterday against the Cardinals, Memorial Day afternoon tilt at American Family Field. I just want to recap real quickly. On Sunday, the Indy 500. Now, as we went over on Friday when we talked about the tragic Kyle Busch story, and there were a lot of dedications and moments of silence, as you would expect, at all the races. Memorial Day weekend is a massive racing weekend, not just the Coca-Cola 600 and the Indy 500. F1 was in Canada, right? I saw that pop up on my Apple TV. But it's a huge racing weekend. And every spot, I think, did something to honor the late Kyle Busch, which is still stunning. They did release the cause of death for Kyle Busch, by the way, and it was sepsis. So it was like a sinus infection, pneumonia, and then turned into sepsis. So, again, a sad reminder of how fragile life can be and to not take anything lightly. If you're not feeling good for days at a time, don't take anything lightly. So that news was happening this weekend. But I had, as we talked about on Friday, although I'm not a racing guy, I've got a good buddy who's into IndyCar and F1 quite a bit, and he kind of gives me some gambling advice because, like the major championships in the PGA, I like to put money on an Indy 500 winner, like the Kentucky Derby. The 4 golf majors, the Derby, and the Indy 500, I love to have at least a little stake in that game and have an outright winner. Now, last year we won. we had Alex Palou as the winner in last year's Indy 500. He was the massive favorite this year, like plus 230, and the next biggest favorite was plus 560. And then we took Malukas. My buddy Nick texted me, like we talked about on Friday, and said, look, you could bet on Palou again. You could bet on him again as the favorite, but there's no fun in that. And he didn't win anyway. And he felt like Malukas, the young American, was a good direction to go. I got Malukas. It was either plus 765 or plus 825. So just about 8-1 as a hit. And I forget what we had Palou. I think Palou was similar last year, a 6 or 7-1 hit. So a pretty good hit. And like we talk about with golf and race, it's hard to pick an outright winner at these events. So even if you pick the heavy favorite, Palou, yesterday, you're still making 2.5 almost to 1 on a $100 bet or whatever bet you put down. There is no unit shaming here. There's unit shaming in other sections of the internet, but not here. So whatever your unit is, $10, $100, whatever your standard bet is, it was paying 2.5 to 1 on Palou. But we got Malukas at like plus 800. So I'm doing what I normally do. I check in on the Indy 500. I've never been a guy, even with money on it, to just sit and watch the entire thing in its full duration. But on Sunday, I would say from about lap 60 on, I was locked and loaded. And by the end of it, I was on the edge of my seat. There were crashes, there were cautions, there were red flags. And then at the end of the race, they end up with, after a caution, there was one lap, and Malukas was sitting in second place. So there was about, I think, 3 laps left, and he was in fourth place. And when they restarted with 4 laps left, he zipped into second place. Like, he made an aggressive move right out of the gate and got into second place. And then there was a little contact with the wall from another driver. And I suppose they said, now this is, again, me not really following racing that closely. There was a guy during that last 3 laps that kind of just touches the wall, but I didn't see anything flying. It didn't look like there was any debris on the track, and it didn't look that serious, and the guy kept on driving. But the broadcaster said, in this situation with a lap or 2 left, they're not going to take any chances. So anytime there's any minor anything, they will pull out the caution flag, and they did. So it ended up with 1 lap to go, and my guy Malukas is sitting in second place. And on the restart on the 1 lap to go, Malukas, pretty early in that lap, is on the outside, and he takes the lead. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, we're going to win again. We're going to win. It's less than a lap. By the time he takes the lead, we're less than a lap. I thought, we're going to hit 2 years in a row. And he's got, on the last half stretch, he's got about a 2-car lead, 2-car length lead on second and third, which were running side by side behind him. And at this point, I think I've got it. But clearly, I do not watch enough racing. This was another spot where I don't really follow racing that closely. So when I think it's over, it's clearly not over. But I thought, how much further do we have to go here? He's got it. And then literally at the last second, what's his name? Felix Rosenquist, who is driving a Morgan Wallen paint job car. That's kind of connects to my B93 gig. And I guess Sirius XM is a sponsor of the car, and they launched a Morgan Wallen station over the weekend, so they had a Morgan Wallen custom paint job on the Rosenquist car. And he zips to the outside and gets a wheel in front as they cross the finish line, and I am stunned. I thought, oh my God, did he just lose? Like, it happened so quickly, which you would expect IndyCar. I get it, John. But I mean, I thought it was a wrap. I thought we had won now $200 times, times 825 plus 825. That would have been a nice little payday for you, boy. I'm thinking we're going to be up like 1,600 entertainment points, 1,600 units, 1,700 units on the day. And all of a sudden, gone. And it was like that. It was gone. And it took me a few minutes to really collect myself. And then Rosenquist is celebrating, and they're interviewing him. And they interview Malukas, and Malukas is in tears. He's a Penske driver. You're not Penske material. And I guess Penske had not won or hasn't won at the Indy 500, so it looked like they had it. And to lose it in that fashion where it looks like it's over and to literally get nipped with one move at the last second had to be stunning for him. And they interviewed him, and he got through it, and it's tough, I think, in that moment where I think he's 24 years old, and he is crying a little bit, and then he has to get interviewed national TV. They put him on the Jumbotron. The entire audience can see him. Eventually, he kind of gets it together and has a really good interview. But I was on the edge of my seat, totally absorbed, all in for the last hour and a half of that race. And my buddy Nick was texting me, different strategies, different pitting strategies, and we're feeling good about this, we're not feeling good about that. And his feeling was that caution, after Malukas got from fourth to second, that last caution really killed him, even though he hopped in the lead on that final lap. So that maybe played a role where if they're just able to finish it all the way through, he's able to get back in front and take it all the way. But I might be in now. As I texted him, now I know Indy cars at Road America every Father's Day weekend. That's what makes it tough because Father's Day weekend is such a jammed up weekend for families where you're doing a bunch of stuff. So I've never been able to get there. I know my buddy Nick, I think he goes every year. So I texted him and said, I might be in for another race here. I know they're in Detroit this coming weekend. So I got the schedule up. I mean, that's how excited and how, even though I lost, that's how exciting the conclusion of the race was. It's like when you go on vacation and you love the spot you're in so much. For like an hour or two when you're sitting on the can, you load up Zillow and you go property values in Kansas City or lakefront property. Where was I for the marathon? Two Rivers. You have a really good time at a spot and then you just start looking at real estate. That's kind of what happened to me because that race was so exciting. The closest finish in Indy 500 history. And then I'm kind of on social media getting different takes on it and watching different videos and all the big sports accounts are posting about it. So I'm kind of getting whipped up in the fervor here. So I look at the schedule. They're in Detroit this coming weekend. All the races are on Fox. And I texted him and said, I might be in if you have an angle for Detroit. Now, he said it's not going to be as fun. It's a road course. It's not the big oval. So it's not going to be the same type of racing. It won't be nearly as exciting. But I think I might be in to watch part of another race and see what happens there and have a little stake in the game. But that was an electric finish at Indy. That is another bucket sports list place to go. The Derby I want to get to. There are certain things in sports that even if I'm not a huge fan of that sport, I feel like I have to go to. Like that's Americana, the Indy 500, and kissing the bricks and doing that whole deal. Suck brick, kid. And I think that's a spot I need to go at some point in my life, go to the Indy 500 race. But to be that close, I thought I had cleared a second straight outright winner at Indy, and just to have it stolen from me like a marble rye at the last second by Rosenquist. But it was so entertaining and enamoring that I think I might give it a run on Sunday and see how a road course race looks in Detroit and see if that can still keep me interested. But like I said on Friday with the Kyle Busch story, I've never been a week-to-week racing guy where I can't wait for the next NASCAR race, I can't wait for the next IndyCar race. I did then try to turn on F1, which was on Apple, and I think they started relatively within a half an hour after Indy 500 ended, and I only lasted about 5 minutes watching that, and that was a road course race, I think, in Canada. That was not as entertaining to me, so maybe I won't be fully in when this Detroit race happens this weekend. But that was a crazy conclusion at Indy on Sunday, and I got to play you this clip real quick, too. I know we talked about this last year. Last year, they did the first ever Wienermobile race at Indy before the Indy 500, so they do this Friday afternoons, and they got like 8 or 9 or 10 Wienermobiles out there. I know we talked about it on the podcast and on the air last year. That was the first year it happened. Then I kind of forgot about it. And then all of a sudden on Friday afternoon, I got home from work and I'm on Twitter and I'm seeing a lot of posts about, hey, the Wienermobile race is happening at Indy in an hour. And I thought, oh my God, they're doing it a second straight year. Some of the clips of the broadcast of the Wienermobile race, you know we're not a lowbrow humor podcast. You know that, right? This is all upper crust. This is very cake eater. We're eating our Snickers bar with a knife and fork on this podcast. Very rarely do we default to the lowbrow underwear humor. But this is some of the best. We're not playing you the whole thing. This is a 2-minute and 30-second clip. But the broadcasting and the double entendres from the Wienermobile play-by-play are just
the second
epic.
Annual Weenie 500. It's about the Borg Weenie.
Weenies! They're very long, they're very wide. When they go tip to tip, that's where the magic happens.
Do you just want to stuff your wiener in?
You're exposing
Good
yourself
God.
now.
It's all about stamina
Have some
when you're
dignity.
talking weenie racing.
You got to get your weenie to the inside.
We talked last year about slippery wieners, but how does that make the handling of your wiener different?
These weenies get hard to handle. You got to grab them with both hands.
Oh! That is a dirty wiener.
Then they stuff it up the inside.
What a silly sausage. It's wiener on wiener action.
The longer the wiener, the better.
Talk to the gentle touch with the wiener, actually.
A penalty to that wiener.
I mean, there's edging, and then there's just being blatant.
God.
Bringing up the rear.
My God.
The wiener train.
It's disturbing.
There's a tight opening there. I don't know if
It's unbelievable. That was 45 seconds. It goes on for 2.5 minutes. But I feel like the play-by-play crew, the broadcasting crew on the Wienermobile race probably has more fun than anybody broadcasting that race. It was just nonstop. And they only go, I think, 5 laps or 3 laps.
You've got 6 weenies.
That's a lot of wieners.
How much are these wieners going to twitch, though, under that heavy load?
Unbelievable. I don't know. I also think I don't think this was on national TV. I think this is exclusively like a social media thing, so you have a little more leeway there. I don't know if this was on. Oh, maybe it was on FS1. It might have been on FS1.
Edging.
That guy was obsessed with the edging.
Side by side. This is incredible.
We got a wobbly wiener.
This is meaty. Pounding their wieners through the final corners. Who's brave enough to shove it in?
Thrusting.
6 wieners. Tip to tip.
So anyway, that also happened over the weekend at Indy. Oh man. So that's our lowest brow segment of the year. That'll be the lowest brow that we go. Oh man, I was laughing. I think my buddy sent us that to the group text. I was cackling when I first went through that full 2.5 minutes. Amazing the amount that they were able to fit in, how much wiener they were able to fit in there. They loved using that. That guy could not get the edging reference in there more. I'm not even sure what that means. Don't Google that, Mom. All right, anyway, let's get on to the Brew crew over the weekend. So we had the podcast on Friday. They were just coming off of the sweep of the Cubs at Wrigley. What a fun week of baseball that was at Wrigley, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Utter domination of the Cubs, who continue to spiral out of control over the weekend. Got swept at home by the Astros. They lost in Pittsburgh yesterday. Craig Counsell's hair looks as stressed as any hair has ever looked. The post game they had yesterday after a 2-1 loss in Pittsburgh, he looks like we talked about PCA being a broken man, and PCA had another comically bad effort on Monday in Pittsburgh on a ball hit to center field. He is broken. They have not won a game since he told that Southside White Sox fan last Sunday. It is now a week after that, Tuesday. This is last weekend Sunday. Since he told that Southside girl to S his weenie mobile, to S my effing DB. And after that, they haven't won a game. That woman has to be having an absolute ball. There was a movement on Brewer Twitter yesterday after the Cubs lost that game against the Pirates yesterday afternoon. The Brewers were winning and going to get a win against the Cardinals. There was a little bit of a movement as people on Twitter started to point out that the Cubs have not won a game since that incident in the South Side last Sunday between the White Sox and Cubs. There are some Brewers fans that were kind of starting a movement to maybe invite that girl as an honorary guest, that woman as an honorary guest to a Brewer game the next time the Cubs are in town, maybe. Get her a seat in that little area we talked about in right field where she can harass PCA and make her an honored guest at American Family Field. I don't hate that. Idea. So they got the sweep of the Cubs, day off Thursday. Then Friday night, they beat the Dodgers. And this was the end. That weekend was the end of that 15-game stretch we talked about. Going back to the home series against the Yankees at American Family Field on Mother's Day weekend, that started a 15-game stretch where, at the time, first place Yankees. At the time, first place Padres. Road trip to Minnesota. Road trip to Chicago. The Cubs were in first place, and the Dodgers were in first place when they came to AmFam Field Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That is a brutal 15-game stretch. I haven't looked that far ahead. There cannot be another stretch of 15 games where you are playing that level of competition, series in, series out. And when that started against the Yankees, remember I said over that 15 games, even if you just keep your head above water here with the injuries the Brewers were dealing with still at the beginning of that and still a little bit now toward the end of it, I thought 8-7 was fine. That would have been fine in that 15-game stretch. Even with the losses on Saturday and Sunday, they go 11-4. Now, they were 11-2 after that win on Friday, and then you're getting really greedy. But had you told me maybe this is just me discovering self-loathing this podcast, because we always talk about the annoying things sports takes or sports podcasters or sports bloggers do. We do them all. If you would have told me on Friday, May 8th, when the Yankees came to American Family Field, that the Brewers would go 11-4 in that 15-game stretch, everybody would take it. It is a little bit of a letdown or a buzzkill, I guess, when you're 11-2 and you lose the last 2 games. And if you even take one game Saturday, Sunday, you win the series and go 12-3. But anybody with a rational brain on Friday, May 8th, if you tell us you're going to go 11-4 in a 15-game stretch against the Yankees, Padres, Road Twins, Road Cubs, and the Dodgers, everybody takes it 100 times out of 100. But you got the win on Friday. Contreras hits that big home run. Logan Henderson was great. 5 shutout innings on Friday. Now, he dealt with some back tightness, I guess, after that game. And Pat Murphy did not sound unconcerned about that before yesterday's game because he is the scheduled starter on Wednesday, tomorrow. Short work week, tomorrow. And they asked, because the Brewers were still TBD or TBA on Wednesday, they asked Murph about that on Monday. And he said, it's still not great, and it is a little concerning. So that would be a big loss. You have Brandon Woodruff hopefully coming back soon. Quinn Priester is still scuffling in his rehab assignment. He's probably still at least a few weeks away if he ends up coming back at the Major League level. I think at this point, with the numbers Quinn is putting up, and I know Murphy has said, the trainers have said, we're not worried about the results. We just want to make sure his wrist is okay and his shoulder is okay, and we can work the rest of the stuff out. Remember, he had the 3 rehab starts. None of them were good. Then he complained of shoulder pain, so then they scaled that back and set him down for a while. Now he's back a week or two later on another rehab stint. That's going to be at least 2 or 3 starts. He's got 1 in the books. Those numbers were not good. So I don't know. I mean, we might get to a point where if the numbers don't improve, it may be a thing where we're just headed to surgery to fix that wrist issue completely and to take it off of his mind, and maybe he doesn't pitch this year. I don't know. I thought we'd have seen Quinn Priester at this point, but Woody is getting close to getting back. So you've got some options here. Even though Gasser hasn't been great, we can talk about him in a second. His Saturday was not good. You've got options. Coleman Crow is still kicking around in AAA, and he's had 2 really good starts at the Major League level. So if Logan's down for a while, you still have a lot of depth there and guys you can go to, but you'd certainly prefer to have him with the way he's been going through 5 starts. But they did make it sound like that's not nothing. It's not a nothing burger, the back tightness that he left Friday's game with. But he threw 5 shutout. You win 5-1. Then on Saturday, my wife and I went, and I think we got dinner that night with my mom, and we were listening to the game on our way back home, and that was the inning where the Brewers put up 3 runs. I think it was right away in the first inning, wasn't it? So you're coming off of, you sweep the Cubs, day off Thursday, you beat the Dodgers 5-1 on Friday, then you come out on Saturday and grab a quick 3-0 lead in the first inning they scored 3. Now they could have had more. Gary Sanchez ran into an out at third base that was ill-advised, and that undermined what could have been maybe a 4, 5, 6-run inning, and they would live to regret that. Now, Saturday, they just walked everybody. Robert Gasser, he was good through 4 innings, or 3 innings, and then he struggled in that 4th inning. Second start of the year for Gasser. It just hasn't looked good so far, and he was sent back down on Sunday. I don't know if he's going to make another start in the near term. We've talked a lot about Gasser. 2 years ago, he was the guy. He was the top pitching prospect in the system. He got called up in 2024. He was excellent in 5 starts in 2024, a 3-0 record, and whatever it was, a 2 ERA or something like that. He looked fantastic. He looked as advertised. 5 starts, 2-0 record, a 2.57 ERA. Then he hurts his shoulder. Tommy John, he's out most of last year, comes back toward the end of last year. He did make a few Major League appearances at the end of last year, made 2 appearances, and pitched in the postseason. Had a 3.18 ERA over 2 appearances at the end of last year. This year, AAA numbers aren't bad, but now in 2 starts, he's 0-1 with a 6.48 ERA, and he just ran into trouble in the middle part of that game, in that 4th inning and into the 5th inning. Am I going to be super upset about that when you look at that Dodger order and what you're trying to navigate around, making your 2nd start of the year, still kind of trying to get healthy after a bunch of injuries and that major injury that cost him the rest of 24 and most of 25? The fact that he didn't look good against that lineup, I'm not sure I'm going to lose any sleep over that. Now he is, and Pat Murphy didn't sound excited. And like I said, he got sent down on Sunday. But you have that 3-0 lead. You had the chance to blow it open. And then after that first inning, nothing offensively for the Brewers, and the pitching just wasn't all that good. 4th inning, the Dodgers put 4 on the board against Gasser, and then they just walked so many guys. The Brewers walked 10 batters total on Saturday. Walked 10 guys. They gave up 10 hits and walked 10 guys. Eventually, the Dodgers blow the game open against D.L. Hall and Jake Woodford, who's sort of the mop-up guy anyway. He gives up 4 runs, so you end up losing that game 11-3. But it is amazing in baseball. You have the sweep of the Cubs. You're red hot. Day off Thursday. Then you beat the Dodgers Friday. Jump out to a 3-0 lead Saturday. The vibes at American Family Field are great. Tarps are off. We'll talk about that in a minute. Everybody's having a great time. And then, just like that, the spigot closes. You can't score any runs, and the Dodgers score 11 unanswered. It's just that quick sometimes in baseball. You lose Saturday 11-3. Then they came back on Sunday and had to take on Yamamoto. Yamamoto, who dominated them in the NLCS last year and who was outstanding in the World Series for the Dodgers. He's in year 3 of a $12 million deal. And you had Brandon Sproat on the hill on Sunday. Brewers grab a quick 1-0 lead, but once again, Brandon Sproat in the 4th inning and the 5th inning just can't quite navigate that part yet. So we'll see. It's still so early in the year, and I know, like we often talk about, there are different perspectives in a fan and a manager, especially as it relates to baseball, where you have 162 games. It's a 6-month schedule. It's not like football where there's 17 games, and if you have a guy who has a bad game or two, you've got to move on and you've got to go a different direction because there aren't enough games. You can't afford that. Pat Murphy, I think, is still trying to figure out what to do with Brandon Sproat and how he is going to develop. Will he get better in these situations? We always use, and I'll use it again right now, I just feel like he looks so much like 2019 Corbin Burns. Not only the stuff that he throws, but then he just has these runs where he looks dominant and untouchable, and then he has runs where he looks like he's throwing batting practice, and that was 2019 Corbin Burns. Now, will Sproat at some point work his way through this and look like Corbin Burns in 2020 and 21 when he won a Cy Young, and then he's been a great pitcher ever since with the injuries in there? Can he get past this, or is he just going to be a guy that ends up being a bullpen arm? That's the number one argument right now from Brewer Twitter, because Sproat in the first 2 or 3 innings looks untouchable, and then there is a noticeable decline in velocity, and his stuff isn't as crisp, and he's getting way too much of the plate in the 4th and 5th innings, and he has those moments where he gets knocked around for a 2, 3, or 4 batter stretch. So Brewer Twitter is looking at this and saying, hey, McFly, wake up, McFly. They're saying this guy is a classic bullpen arm. If he's giving you 2 or 3 really good innings, but he can't get through the 4th or 5th inning, this reeks of a bullpen guy. Pat Murphy talked about it post-game, and he said what we've been saying. It's just too early. We just don't know with Brandon Sproat as of yet. We've got to keep giving him reps. We've got to keep giving him chances to develop and get through this. And while that's frustrating as a fan of a team because you see the same stuff happening over and over again, Pat Murphy's looking at it and saying, like he said on Sunday in the postgame, we love this guy's stuff. He has dominant stuff when he's dialed in. He has to do it more consistently. But the only way to learn whether or not he's going to be able to figure it out is to give him chances. If you pull him after the 3rd or 4th inning every start because you don't want to have that 4th or 5th inning happen, then he's never going to figure it out. If you don't give him the chances to figure things out, he's never going to get it figured out. So in May, when you're feeling pretty good and you're on a roll, you're in first place right now, you feel comfortable with where the team is at, give him his chances then. I don't think they do this the entire year with a first-place team, with a team that thinks it can win a division, can win playoff series, could maybe make a run to the World Series. I don't think they're going to allow Brandon Sproat to do this the entire year if he doesn't figure it out. Like, if it gets to June or July and he's still doing that, he's throwing 2 or 3 innings of dominant baseball, and then he's bad in the 4th inning, bad in the 5th inning, I don't think they're going to let him do that over the course of 30 starts. But Murphy's message after the game Sunday was, his stuff is too good. We believe in him. We're going to keep giving him some chances for the time being. Look, the guy's only made how many games? He's only pitched in 14 Major League games. He's only made 12 starts in his Major League career. And again, he just shows you when he looks good, he looks really good. And if he can just find a way to keep that velocity up, be more consistent in the strike zone in the 4th and 5th inning, and he can find a way to get through that, he's going to be a really good pitcher. I don't know if he's going to be an ace like Burns developed into, but if Sproat can figure out his way through to navigate through those middle innings, I think he has the chance to be a really good number 2 or a really good number 3 on a Major League rotation. And when you're talking about a guy that you got back in the Peralta deal, and a guy that has, I think, 6 years or 5 years of team control left, if you allow him to develop and he becomes what you're hoping he will become, that's going to pay a lot of dividends. But like I said, you've got to be a little careful with a division title contending team, with a team that feels like it can make another run this year. You just can't allow him to do that over the course of 30 starts. He's going to have to show some development at some point, but it was the exact same stuff on Sunday that bit him. The Dodgers end up scoring 4 runs in the 5th inning, a run in the 4th inning to tie it, then 4 in the 5th inning, and Sproat ends up taking the loss in a 5-1 loss. So, like we said, kind of a buzzkill after you sweep the Cubs, day off, beat the Dodgers Friday, jump out to an early lead Saturday, and then after that second inning on Saturday, just couldn't do much of anything. You lose 11-3 and you lose 5-1, but 11-4 through that 15-game stretch. nothing to be upset about, I think, if you're a Brewer fan. Now, I'm sure plenty of fans were upset about it, but I don't know how you can be. With that level of competition over a 15-game stretch to navigate your way into first place, to go 11-4, I don't know how you can be upset about that. But people find ways to be upset about a lot of things. So the Brewers come back on Monday, afternoon tilt, Memorial Day Monday. Now, before Monday's game, let's talk about Tarps Off. This was fascinating over the weekend because it started on Friday, and then it went into Saturday, and then we had some issues with ushers and security, and then fans on Twitter were upset about the way the Brewers were handling Tarps Off. So Tarps Off.
There's no rules! Put your shirt back on. There's one rule!
Put your shirt back on. I was thinking of the Seinfeld, too, where they're at the Devils hockey game. Got to support the team. You said no more paint. I said no more face paint. There's no rules.
There's no rules! Put your shirt back on. There's one rule!
So this was a movement that started with the Cardinals. I actually think this goes back to maybe some college football stuff in the fall. Some fans do this there. But this became a baseball thing in St. Louis at a Cardinals home game 2 weeks ago. There was a group of fans that navigated their way to the left field bleachers at a Cardinal game, upper regions of the stadium. And I would say, like with most dumb things, this is mostly white dudes in their late teens, early 20s. Which, hey, I'm still guilty of it at 41, soon to be 42. But I've been in that headspace. I know what's going on in that brain. It's like the Homer where he's got the bird dipping his beak on the key. I know what's going on in that brain, the monkey with the symbols. I am well-versed in what is happening in a 22-year-old dude's brain when it comes to that kind of stuff. Even though I'm 20 years removed from it, I still know what goes on in that headspace. So they made their way up to the left field upper tank region, took their shirts off, started whipping the shirts around, and they just end up making a lot of noise and generating a lot of energy. They go, oh. I mean, do that little soccer chant, and they were having a ball. Now, Ollie Marmol, the Cardinals manager, the Cardinals rallied in that game and won. They were down late. Then the guys go up there, take their shirts off. They're whipping their shirts around. And the Cardinals come back and win that game. And then Ollie Marmol kind of made this a bigger deal because after the game, they asked him about it. And he said, look, if I could pay those guys to do that every home game, I would. Because from a manager perspective and from a team perspective, when you're down and there's only 20,000 people in attendance and it's kind of a dead stadium, anything that brings life to it is something that brings life to your team. So Marmol went out of his way to say, God, I wish we had those guys there at every game. I'd pay them to come to every game and do that. Well, after that, you have started to see the Tarps Off movement hit a lot of different major league stadiums. And on Friday, it came to American Family Field. And you can hear it. I remember watching Friday's game in the 6th, 7th innings. It does seem like they wait until the later innings to do this. All of a sudden on the TV broadcast, you just hear kind of a ruckus on the broadcast, and you think, what the hell is that? Guys are going crazy. And the TV camera is put on them. And then the Brewers at American Family Field, there must be like a spotlight thing in that area of the stadium. So where they went is like section 438 or 439 or 440. It is the upper tank left field side. They're higher up than Bernie's clubhouse. I mean, that is way up there. I've sat up there. My wife and I have sat up there. Those are the cheapest tickets you can get. I think now they're probably $18 or $19, maybe $20. But back in the day, you could get that ticket for $11, $12. So that is one of the cheapest areas to sit. But they put a spotlight on them. And it's a whole thing on Friday. Well, then on Saturday, they tried to make this happen again. All the Tarps Off guys, I don't know if they're the same guys, but the same sort of guys. It's like the Eminem music video. It's the exact same guy, just with slightly different looks. And they tried to make it happen again. Well, this time, a bunch of ushers in that section kicked him out. They went up there, and you could hear him on TV, but then it very quickly got silenced, and they were told to leave that area. And then you saw pictures on Twitter of ushers standing outside of those sections, security, armed security. I mean, come on, but I think all security is armed at American Family Field. But they had security out there, too, and they were checking tickets to make sure those people belonged there, and if they didn't, they kicked them out. So this led to Brewer Twitter getting quite angry with the Brewers and saying, come on, what are we doing here? They're guys, they're dumb. They may be dumb, but they're not hurting anybody. That's another key characteristic of the 22 to 20, of the 18 to 26-year-old dude. That is another key characteristic for most of us in that age group. We're not going to hurt anybody. We're going to be dumb, but we're not going to hurt anybody. And that was sort of the argument from Brewers fans on social media, tagging the Brewer official account on Twitter, on Facebook, saying, guys, you got to relax. Let these guys have fun. It's fun. It's different. It's fun. The Brewers actually had to issue a statement on this, I think either on Sunday or Monday, because of the amount of flack they were getting on social media for how they were handling Tarps Off over the weekend. Now, the Brewers statement, and it always makes me laugh when somebody with a PR degree somewhere, somebody that spent like 8 years in college and has kicked around to a million jobs, somebody that's got that mentality had to sit down on Sunday or Monday and write an official statement from the desk of the Brewers about the Tarps Off movement. And I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially what they said was, we have no problem with the Tarps Off movement. We're not trying to undermine the Tarps Off movement, but we have to make sure that if people are sitting in those seats, if people have actual tickets in that section, they can't be edged out. Got edge on the brain. They can't be taken out by the Tarps Off movement. So they said, Saturday, Sunday, we had near sellouts, and those tickets, those seats were sold to specific fans to sit in those seats. So you can't have the Tarps Off movement invading sections where people have tickets to sit in that section, which I guess makes sense. The statement kind of went on to say that, on a night where they're not sold out, on a night where nobody's sitting up there, if a bunch of dudes want to go up there and whip their shirts off and try to make some noise, by all means, we have no problem with that. But on sold-out games or near sold-out games, we need to protect the integrity of the people that purchase the tickets to sit in that seat. I guess that makes sense. But the whole Tarps Off thing, the idea of them having to draft a statement on Tarps Off is just hilarious to me. So on Monday, it did happen. I don't know if it was a sellout on Monday. It was close. It was Dollar Dog Day. But they end up having a little mini version of the Tarps Off movement in the left field corner. Now, we'll see. This could be one of those things that it's fun for a week or two and then it fizzles out. I don't know if this is going to last at Major League stadiums because, again, it's not just AmFam Field. It's all over Major League Baseball. I don't know if this is something that has sustainability. Is this something that's going to keep on going throughout the entirety of summer? You would think, though, as it gets warmer and as college kids are out, I think most college kids are done now, though, but high school kids, college kids, there's going to be more people at the stadium. The Brewers are good, so there's excitement there. I would almost think this would last for a little bit of time. I don't think there's any way this sustains all the way until October, but I guess we'll see. But the official statement made me laugh on either Sunday or Monday. Now, we get to Memorial Day Monday, so the Brewers looking for a bounce back on Memorial Day Monday against the Cardinals, and coming into Monday with the way the Cubs have fallen off the face of the planet, the Cardinals are now in second place, and the Brewers are in first place. So, yes, Saturday, Sunday, frustrating, but division games mean a lot, especially this time of year. And as we've talked about, with the schedule the way it is now, you don't play these teams as much as you used to. You have got to pile up as many division wins as you can get. So the Miz on the mound yesterday, I'm the Miz and nobody beats me.
I'm the Wiz.
Well, what about your fact-checking job?
Oh, here's the fact. I'm the Wiz.
What a scene.
I'm the Wiz. I'm the Wiz.
Well, what about your fact-checking job?
Oh, here's the fact. I'm the Wiz.
I'm the Miz and nobody beats me. So he goes out there. He had not given up a run in the month of May heading into yesterday, and he was so dialed in. Everything that we talk about with Miz comes down to the velocity conversation, and he is throwing velocities the likes of which we just never seen at the major league level. Now, remember we talked on the Friday podcast, I think. He was dominant in Chicago last week, 6 shutout innings, but he only threw 74 pitches. And remember he said at the end of that game that he was out of gas. He told Murphy, I am left of the slash. I need a break. This is as far as I can take it tonight. And by his standards, that start at Wrigley Field, he was throwing 100, 101, which is still mind-blowing for almost all of baseball, any other pitcher in Major League Baseball. But by his standards, it felt like he was down a tick at Wrigley Field last week. He was throwing 99, 100, 101, not quite hitting that 102, 103 level with consistency the way we've seen him do that this year. So he comes off of that start, and he goes out there yesterday. The first 6 pitches he throws are 103 miles per hour or faster. The literal hot, stinky cheddar. He ends up throwing yesterday 57 pitches at 100 miles per hour or better. 57 pitches. I remember as a kid when Nolan Ryan was in his heyday or at the end of his career, or maybe Roger Clemens, when guys were hitting 99, when you saw 100 for one pitch, I'm saying one pitch, when Derek Turnbow, it always comes back to Derek Turnbow on this podcast, when Derek Turnbow would hit 100 a handful of times during the course of the year, we thought, oh my God, we never see 100 miles per hour. Now, when Miz throws 99, you almost think something's wrong with him. You almost think, oh my God, is he hurt? So it's just a totally different perspective with a guy with the Miz's skill set. But he goes out there and throws 57 pitches in a single game of 100 miles per hour or better. That is a StatCast or pitch StatCast record in that era of baseball. I think the previous record was Hunter Green in Cincinnati, who also throws a lot of hundreds. I think he had 42 or 43 in a game, so the Miz beat that by a lot. 57 100-mile-per-hour or better pitches on Monday. And he just mowed him down. I mean, there were at-bats where those guys, those Cardinal hitters, just didn't have a chance. Brewers gave him an early lead. William Contreras, RBI single in the first. Yelly hit a 2-run bomb. That was really good to see. 4th home run of the year. So 3 runs on the board right away in the first inning, and that was all he would need. Now, the Miz did give up a run yesterday. What a letdown. What a bummer. He gave up a run in the 6th inning. That ended a run of 29 1/3 scoreless innings. That is actually only 3rd best in franchise history. Teddy Higuera has the record, I think, of 32. I forgot last year that Freddie, during his near Cy Young season, Freddie had a 30-inning scoreless streak last year. And the Miz goes 29 1/3 this year, 3rd best in franchise history. 12 strikeouts yesterday. That matches a career high. 7 innings of 1-run ball with 12 strikeouts. He ends up getting the win. Brewers win 5-1. Garrett Mitchell tacked on an RBI single. Andrew Vaughn, who had a really good day yesterday, 3-hit day. He had an RBI ground rule double late, and the Brewers took it 5-1. Aaron Ashby, everyday Aaron, he pitched 2 scoreless innings in relief of Mizorowski. But Mizorowski comes out of yesterday. A 5-2 record, a 1.83 ERA, 3rd best in Major League Baseball. He has an even 100 strikeouts on the year. That is the most in Major League Baseball. And like we said in the teaser, he's just got this gravitas about him right now where he is a rock star. Every inning, every time he is on the mound, like CeCe in 2008, you don't want to miss it. Now, and the Brewers have had some really good single seasons since the CeCe season. Corbin Burns won a Cy Young in 2021, but I don't remember, even in that year, where Corbin Burns was the best pitcher in the National League, even in that year, I don't remember him having that kind of feel to him like the Miz does where, yeah, I want to watch every Brewer game. I wanted to watch every Corbin Burns start, but if I missed a Corbin Burns start in 2021, I wasn't, sad about it. If I were to miss a Miz start, I think I'd be sad. I think I would be sad if I didn't have a chance to watch or listen to as many innings of The Miz as I could. He is like a rock star headlining American Family Field every time he is on the mound. He is living up to every billing that we heard about him on his way up. And we've talked about last year, huge splash when he got called up. Then he had a little lull. Then he was great in the playoffs. And he has carried that run from the playoffs on into the regular season this year. Like we said earlier, or a couple of episodes ago, there is going to be no controversy this year. When Jacob Mizorowski makes the All-Star game this year, there will be zero controversy because right now he looks like the most unhittable force in Major League Baseball. And I'm talking about Paul Skeens. I'm talking about all the great pitchers right now. He right now, and obviously things can change, there's a long way to go, but right now he looks like about the most unhittable commodity, pitching commodity in Major League Baseball. Just dominant, pure dominance from the minute he takes the mound. So you get the 5-1 win yesterday. With that win, the Brewers are now 31-20 on the year. They are 2.5 games better than the Cardinals, 3 better in the loss column. Cubs, as we said, lost again. What a weird... They haven't even played 60 games this year. The Cubs have played 54 games. They have had 2 10-game winning streaks, 2 separate 10-game winning streaks, and now a 9-game losing streak in 54 games. That is remarkable. They may lose 10 in a row. That could be tonight. So right now the Brewers have a 2.5-game lead, 3 better in the loss column than the Cardinals. They are 5 better in the loss column and a 3.5-game lead on the Cubs entering play today. Everybody is still above 500 in the NL Central. The Reds are 3 games over. The Pirates are 2 games over. We have, when is June 1st? Next Monday? So we have 6 days in May left. I didn't think it was possible. When we talked about that on the first podcast of May, when we talked about how the NL Central had everybody at or above 500 at the end of the month of May, that was the first time that had happened in NL history and only the 4th or 5th time it had happened in Major League Baseball history. We joked on that podcast about, I don't think they'll be all at or above 500 at the end of May. It's looking like they're probably going to be. That's a very strong possibility right now. Unless the Cubs lose every game this week, is that possible? They're going to have a 13 or 14-game losing streak, then they would be below 500 by the time we get to Sunday. It is looking very likely like every team in the division is going to be at or above 500 at the end of the month of May. That is nuts, but it just shows you how good this Brewer team has been that they now stand atop that division, the toughest division in baseball, with a 31-20 record, 11 games over 500. So back at it tonight, Kyle Harrison. Now we'll see if Kyle Harrison can do what he did last week at Wrigley Field, and that is back up a dominant Miz start with one that's even better. I don't know how you could be better than the Miz yesterday, but we'll see. Kyle Harrison on the hill tonight, 6:40 first pitch, and then a 12:40 first pitch on Wednesday. Right now, TBD, that would be Logan Henderson's spot. We'll see if he's good enough with that back tightness to get out there. But that will wrap up is that the first series with St. Louis or second? No, yeah, this is their first series with St. Louis this year. So that will wrap up their first series with the Cardinals today and tomorrow. Then we'll talk about it on the Friday podcast. Then they've got 3 in Houston, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Come back with 4 against the Giants at home. Always kind of struggle with the Giants. And then they head west. They go to Colorado next weekend, and then they go to, it's not Oakland, I think it's Vegas they're playing in. The Athletics, the team formerly known as the Oakland Athletics, but now just the Athletics. They are playing some games in Sacramento. They're playing some games in Vegas. So I think they're going to Vegas then on June 9th, 8th, 9th, and 10th to take on the A's. But what a run. 11-4 in that 15-game stretch, and they get the Memorial Day Monday win behind a dominant start from Mizorowski as the Brewers sit at 31-20. All right, real quick, we can talk about a little bit NBA stuff. Nothing new on the Giannis front. Giannis is still a Buck. I feel like I have to say that every podcast episode now that he's still a Milwaukee Buck. I feel like we have to bring that up. We have to talk about that. It is really feeling like, I know we talked on the Friday podcast about how I'm sticking to my guns. It's a part of the German. Remember last week, Monday, after the marathon, I talked about how my German stubbornness really fueled me for the final part of that race where I could have quit, but there's that German stubbornness. And remember I said another thing I struggle with is ever admitting I'm wrong. So that's a part of the German stubbornness. I'm sticking with it. It does sort of feel like we're on a path to a trade now, right? You know, the other team that's been mentioned outside of Miami, I know we talked about the potential Miami trade on the Friday podcast, and that still seems like the most viable option the Bucks have at the moment. Now, we're not behind the scenes. We don't know everything, but that, if you're just following the tea leaves and a piece of candy, if you're following the trail on Twitter, that feels like it's the most likely spot he's going to end up, and it feels like the only team that has a formal offer to the Bucks right now, that offer of Tyler Hero and Jaime Jaquez and Khalil Ware and 3 or 4 first-round picks. There is another team that has kind of entered the chat, as the kids say, and that is the Boston Celtics. A lot of rumors about the Celtics. Now, I guess if he gets traded, it is what it is. I have always said that when Giannis gets traded, I will still root for Giannis. Like, he's one of those guys that elevated a franchise that in my lifetime I never thought I'd see win a title. In my lifetime, I never thought I'd see them have a transcendent MVP player. I never thought I'd see them have an MVP player score 50 points in an NBA Finals game-clinching Game 6, one of the all-time great clinching NBA Finals performances ever. Never in my wildest dreams did I think as a Milwaukee Bucks fan I would ever see that. So for all of those reasons and his loyalty over the last 3 contracts to the Bucks, for all of those reasons, I have always said that wherever Giannis ends up, if he ends up not finishing his career in Milwaukee, wherever he ends up, I love him so much as a guy. I love him so much as a star athlete for my favorite NBA team that I will root for him. And I think that's a special kind of athlete. I think that takes a special kind of athlete where the fan base of that team, when he leaves that team, says, we loved you so much during your time here, we will actively root for you on another team. Now, most of that in my brain has been if he ends up on the West Coast, like if he ends up with the Thunder, if he ends up with the Warriors. That's always been for me, and I know we talked about that around the trade deadline maybe. That would be, for me, that would be the preferred destination for Giannis. It doesn't sound like the Warriors are even trying to get him, but I like the idea of Steph Curry in the last 3 or 4 years of his career teaming up with Giannis. You get the really good guard, the really good big man, and see what they can do in the Western Conference. I would love that. That would be very easy. It would be very easy for me to root for Giannis in a Warriors jersey. It wouldn't be as easy in a Miami jersey because we know the history between the Bucks and Heat is not great, and I have no love lost for the Heat. So it would be more difficult to root for Giannis if he stays in the Eastern Conference, where you're going to play him a bunch every year. And especially when you have, if he goes to a team like Miami, there's a lot of history with the Bucks. The Celtics would be a tough one for me. It would be very difficult for me to root for the Celtics. Now, look, when I say I would root for Giannis, I'm not saying I would root for Giannis over the Bucks. In any situation, it's Bucks above everybody. So if it came down to the Bucks facing Giannis in a playoff series or a finals, whatever, I would always root for the Bucks over Giannis. But Giannis is of that stature and caliber in my brain that I would pull for him. If he played for the Warriors and they were in the Western Conference Finals against the Thunder, I would watch every game and I would root for the Warriors. I would root for Giannis to win. I would never root for a Giannis-led team over the Bucks, but I would, in any other situation, I would pull for him. Boston would be tough, though. I don't know how much veracity there is to those rumors and what the Celtics would be even willing to give up. It sounds like that would be a 3-team deal where Jaylen Brown would then end up in, like, Portland, because I don't think the Bucks want Jaylen Brown, even though he's going to finish top 5 or top 10 MVP voting this year. That's not a guy you build a franchise around. He's 30 years old. It's not like he's young and on the ascend. So I don't think in any trade situation the Bucks would want a Jaylen Brown kind of player, but he could be the key part of the deal ending up somewhere else, and then the Bucks get more draft picks back coming their way. Miami would be a tough one to root for Giannis. Boston would be really tough. I don't know. There's so much bad history there in the last 5 or 6 years with the Celtics. It would be extremely difficult to find myself rooting for Giannis. Even if, he goes to Boston ends up in the playoffs, Boston's in the Eastern Conference Finals, whatever, and the Bucks are a non-playoff team. It would be tough to root for Boston or to root for Giannis in a Celtics jersey. That's the only other team that I've really heard any rumors about, though, in the last week or so. And Miami still seems to be kind of the number one spot where he may end up. So there were more rumors about that over the weekend. Otherwise, the Knicks punched their ticket to the NBA Finals. First time since 1999, the Knicks are in the finals. They sweep away the Cavaliers, dominate them 4-0. It was funny over the weekend. I didn't realize Travis Kelce is a Cleveland guy. I didn't know he was raised around Cleveland. He's an Ohio guy. So the big thing with the Knicks and the Lakers and some of those big markets is who is sitting in Celebrity Row. And they always show you at Madison Square Garden at Knicks games, Ben Stiller's in the front row, and obviously Spike Lee is always there, and who's the kid now? Chalamet and the Kardashian girl he's dating. They're always in the front row. So when you get to New York and L.A., there's always a lot of stars out when you get to playoff time and when you get to these big series. So Cleveland is not well regarded for their celebrities from their area. But Travis Kelce brought his my fiancée, Taylor Swift, to the game for Game 3. That was Saturday night. And that's got to be the biggest celebrity that has ever been to a Cleveland Cavaliers game. I did have to laugh. She looked so bored. She looked, as you would expect. Now, I think she has become a football fan, obviously, with Kelce, and we've seen her now at a million different Chiefs games, and over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, I'm sure she's gotten a pretty good working knowledge of football. She looked very disinterested in this NBA game, but that, to me, when I saw those pictures, any doubt I had about, some people are always going to say, they're doing it for the publicity. They're doing it to make money. It's a fake relationship. That's not a fake relationship. It reminds me of when Rodgers and Olivia Munn were dating, and Olivia Munn came to a Bucks game with him. And this is back when the Bucks were like a 30-win team. Giannis was on the team, but he wasn't Giannis yet, and they were not a good team yet or a fun franchise. I remember when Rodgers started dating Olivia Munn, some people said the same thing. Oh, there's no truth to that, or it's all for show or whatever. When I saw Olivia Munn come to the Bradley Center, not Fiserv Forum when the Bucks are competing for titles. She was at the Bradley Center, front row with Aaron Rodgers, and the Bucks team was not good. When I saw that, I thought, oh, that's a real relationship. That's real. That's through thick and thin. That's what it should have said in whatever that Bible verse is. Sickness and in health, all that stuff. If you're going to regular season Bucks games at the Bradley Center in like 2015, that is a true ride or die. But the pictures of Taylor at that game, she tried her best. She kind of got into it. Kelsey was chugging beers like he was David Bakhtiari. She was laughing about that. But you can tell when someone is bored. And she was just very bored. But she stuck it out. And the Cavs lost, but she stuck it out. That has to be the biggest celebrity that has ever been front row at a Cavaliers game. But the Knicks are on their way to the finals, and now they wait for their opponent. We've got Game 5, pivotal Game 5 tonight between the Thunder and Spurs back in OKC. That series is tied at 2. It feels like, or has felt like, the winner of this series is going to be the NBA champion, but the Knicks look so good. Now, is the Eastern Conference that bad, or are the Knicks that good? It's one of those debates. They haven't lost a game. Have the Knicks lost a game since they lost to the Hawks? I don't think they have. Did they sweep? Is it back? Yeah. So the Knicks were down 2-1 in the first round to Atlanta. They lost 2 games in a row. They were down 2-1. Then they won 3 in a row to win that series. They swept Philly, and then they swept Cleveland. They have won 11 straight playoff games, and a lot of these are blowouts. Again, is this a sign of a weak Eastern Conference and the Knicks being a good team in a really bad conference? We'll find out when they take on the Spurs or Thunder how they match up there. But the overwhelming sentiment among NBA fans has been the winner of this Spurs-Thunder series is going to be the NBA champion. No team from the Eastern Conference stands a chance, and maybe that is how it will play out. But I don't know that you can sleep on a team that even in a watered-down conference has won 11 consecutive playoff games. But, of course, New York is buzzing. Knicks back in the finals for the first time in 27 years, and they await the winner of this Thunder-Spurs series, which does feel like it's going to be going to 7 games. We'll find out. Thunder at home tonight for Game 5. And then finally today, just real quick, not a lot to go over, Packer OTA start today. It's Micah Parsons' birthday today. 27 years old, Micah Parsons. Let's hope he has those Reggie White healing abilities. Let's hope all the comparisons that Micah had to Reggie White as an edge rusher, as a guy who piles up sacks and terrorizes quarterbacks, all of those comparisons to Reggie. Let's hope one other thing that Micah Parsons has in his back pocket that Reggie always had are those ultra-quick Wolverine-esque healing capabilities. And he's back earlier rather than later. I still think Micah's back probably the first weekend in October, maybe the last weekend in September, but he's 27 years old today, Micah Parsons. But the Packers start week 1 of 3 weeks of OTAs today. Football is back, baby. Tuesday, today, Wednesday, and Friday this week, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday next week, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday the week after for OTAs in Green Bay. There's always a little extra life in Green Bay on the days where, voluntary workouts start, OTAs start, of course, when training camp starts, but you just feel like we're just getting a little bit closer to football. OTAs getting underway today. That'll do it for us here on your Monday morning. When we get back after it on Friday, we'll talk about the remaining parts of the Cardinal Brewer series. We'll maybe have the NBA Finals set. Maybe we'll be closer to a Giannis resolution. We're less than a month away from the draft now. Like I said on the last podcast, I feel like by the time we record the podcast on June 19th, heading into Father's Day weekend, Road America IndyCar weekend, I feel like we're going to have a real good idea as to whether or not a trade is actually going to happen by that point, because that'll be 4 days before the draft end. It's a possibility it'll already be done by then. But that's when I feel like we're going to get a real idea of, okay, he's probably gone or he's staying. So we're a ways away from that. But any Giannis news, we'll talk about that on Friday as well. Have a happy, safe work week. We'll chat with you then.